My sister Donna arrived at the lake house with a buyer, a handwritten note, and the confidence of someone who thought grief had made me easy to push aside. She said our father had promised her the property years ago and that I had agreed to do the decent thing. But I knew what that house meant. Dad built its porch with his own hands, and after he passed, he made me promise the family would never turn it into a quick sale. Donna said I was being sentimental. Then the surveyor opened an old county file and found a document Dad had recorded long before either of us knew it existed. It did not just name the true owner. It explained exactly why Donna had waited until now to make her claim. Subscribe for more stories about family secrets and rightful boundaries. And comment, should verbal promises ever outweigh official records? I was standing on the front porch when Donna pulled into the gravel drive that morning. It was late September, the time of year when the lake turned the color of hammered steel and the trees along the water began to burn gold around their edges. I had come out early with a cup of coffee and a roll of paper towels because the wind had blown leaves into the porch corners again. It was the kind of ordinary work Dad used to call keeping a place honest. Then I saw the unfamiliar silver SUV behind Donna's car. A man in a tan jacket stepped out of the passenger side holding a leather folder. He looked around at the house, at the old cedar siding, at the dock, at the narrow strip of shoreline where Dad used to keep a rusted aluminum canoe. His eyes did not rest on any of it with affection. They measured it. Donna came up the walkway, smiling too widely. "Rebecca," she said, "I'm glad you're here. This is Mr. Callahan. He's interested in the property." I set my coffee down on the porch rail. "Interested in what property?" Donna's smile tightened. "The lake house." For a moment, I honestly thought she was joking. Donna had always had a way of saying outrageous things with such casual confidence that you almost felt silly for reacting. But Mr. Callahan did not smile. He extended his hand. "James Callahan. I understand the family is ready to sell." I did not take his hand. "The family is not ready to sell," I said. "And I certainly haven't agreed to sell." Donna let out a short breath like I had embarrassed her in front of company. "Rebecca, please." "We discussed this." "No," I said. "You discussed it. I listened because I was trying to be polite." Her face changed then. Not dramatically. Donna was too practiced for that, but I saw the little hardening around her mouth. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of yellow legal paper. "This is what I'm talking about," she said. "Dad told me years ago that he wanted me to have the place." "You said you understood that after the funeral." The paper shook slightly in her hand, though I could not tell whether it was from anger or performance. I did not touch it. "What is that?" "A note Dad wrote." I looked at the uneven handwriting from where I stood. It was meant to resemble his. A few words were underlined. One line was written larger than the others. "Donna will have the lake place. Rebecca knows." My stomach tightened, but not because I believed it. I had spent enough years looking at Dad's handwriting. He had written birthday cards in it. Grocery lists. Notes tucked into my lunchbox when I was a girl. The first time William and I took out a mortgage, Dad had mailed us a handwritten letter telling us not to let fear make our decisions for us. The writing on Donna's paper looked close from a distance, too close. Dad's real handwriting leaned gently to the right. The letters were narrow, almost careful. This writing pressed down too hard. The capital D in Donna looked like someone had copied it slowly from memory. "I've never seen that note," I said. Donna folded her arms. "That doesn't mean Dad didn't write it. It also doesn't mean he did." Mr. Callahan shifted his weight. He was clearly beginning to understand that he had walked into something that had not been explained to him properly. Donna turned to him quickly. "My father passed away last spring," she said. "My sister has been having a hard time letting go." I felt something inside me go very still. Donna had used that voice before. The voice of concern. The voice that made her sound patient and reasonable, while quietly placing a question mark over someone else's judgment. "She's grieving," she continued. "We both are. But this house has been sitting here and it needs work. The taxes are expensive. We need to make a practical decision." I looked directly at Mr. Callahan. "My husband died 6 years ago," I said. "My father died 7 months ago. I am grieving, but I am not confused, and I am not selling this house today." "Mr. Callahan nodded once. "I understand." Donna's eyes flashed. "You told me you didn't want the burden." I said I didn't want you making decisions for me. That is not the same thing. No, I said. It isn't. For a few seconds, none of us spoke. Wind moved through the maple trees behind the house. Somewhere down the shoreline, a dog barked twice and then stopped. Donna held up the note again. Dad promised me this place, she said. You know he did. I looked at her and remembered being 10 years old, standing beside her in Dad's garage, while he taught us how to sand the old rowboat. Donna had been 13 then, impatient and pretty, and already convinced she deserved the easiest part of every task. Dad had handed her a piece of sandpaper and said, If you want something to last, Donna, you have to do the work nobody sees. She had rolled her eyes when he turned away. I had never forgotten it. I know Dad loved both of us, I said quietly. I know he wanted us to be fair with each other, but I do not know what you are trying to do with that paper. Her cheeks colored. I'm trying to honor his wishes. No, I said. You're trying to sell a house you do not own. Mr. Callahan cleared his throat. I think I should step away and let the family sort this out, he said. Donna turned on him so fast that even he looked startled. You came all this way, and I'm not interested in buying into a dispute, he said evenly. If there are title questions, I'd need those resolved first. There it was. Title questions. Donna's expression did not change much, but I saw panic pass through it like a shadow under water. She had expected me to be emotional. She had expected me to cry, perhaps, or retreat into the house and let her speak for both of us. She had not expected a buyer to say the one phrase she could not explain away. Mr. Callahan handed her a business card. When the ownership is clear, you can contact me, he said. Then he walked back to his SUV. Donna stood in the driveway watching him leave. The sound of his tires on the gravel seemed louder than it should have. When the SUV disappeared around the bend, she turned toward me. You just cost us a sale. There was never a sale. You always do this, she said. You take something Dad meant for me and make it about yourself. I stared at her. What have I ever taken from you? Her eyes narrowed, but she did not answer. Instead, she stepped closer and lowered her voice. You know I need the money. I had suspected that was beneath all of this, but hearing her say it did not make it easier. Donna had been married 3 times. Her second husband, a decent man named Howard, had left her after she took out credit cards in his name. Her third marriage had lasted less than 2 years. Since then, she had bounced between part-time jobs, online resale schemes, and promises that she was finally about to catch a break. For most of our adult lives, Dad had helped her. Not because he had more money than sense, as Donna liked to say, but because he loved her and kept hoping the next emergency would be the one that made her stand on her own feet. He paid her car insurance twice. He covered the rent when she was between apartments. He gave her money for a dental procedure that I later learned had become a weekend trip to Nashville. After Dad died, I found a small notebook in his desk. On several pages, he had written dates, amounts, and short notes in the same careful handwriting I knew so well. Donna, 1,200, utilities. Donna, 850, late rent. Donna, 3,000, final help. Must stop. The final help had been written 3 years before he died. I had never shown Donna the notebook. I did not need to. She knew what Dad had done for her. She simply believed it had never been enough. This house is not your emergency fund, I said. Her face crumpled for a moment, and I hated that part of myself still wanted to comfort her. Rebecca, she said softer now. I'm in trouble. What kind of trouble? She looked away toward the lake. I have bills. Everyone has bills. It's more than that. How much more? She pressed her lips together. I waited. Finally, she said, I borrowed against my condo. My chest sank. Donna, I thought I could catch up. Then the interest rate changed. I've been trying to fix it. Does your son know? Michael doesn't need to know everything. That meant he did not know. Donna's son, Michael, was 34 and lived 2 towns over with his wife and little girl. He had spent years trying to maintain some kind of relationship with his mother, but every time she got desperate, she tried to pull him into the middle of it. I had seen him pay for her groceries once, while she complained that he had bought the wrong brand of coffee. No one is going to save my condo, Donna said, and suddenly there was resentment in her voice again. Not you, not Michael, not anybody. This house is the one thing Dad promised me. You keep saying that, I replied. But you haven't shown me anything that proves it. She thrust the yellow paper toward me. Read it. I took it at last. The note was only 4 lines long. No date, no address, no witness. No signature beyond what appeared to be Dad's name at the bottom. And one sentence that did not sound like him at all. Rebecca will understand because she already has enough. Dad would never have written that. Not because he loved me more than Donna, but because he knew exactly how dangerous that kind of sentence could be between family. I folded the paper carefully and handed it back. "This is not enough to transfer ownership," I said. "I'm not asking you to transfer anything. I'm asking you to do the decent thing. By giving you a house that Dad and I jointly maintained for 15 years, you came here on weekends. I came when Dad's knees gave out. I came when the roof leaked. I came when the septic pump failed. And you told him you were too busy to drive 2 hours." Her jaw tightened. "Don't rewrite history." "I'm not rewriting it. I'm remembering it." Donna took a step back. For the first time that morning, she looked less confident than tired. Then she said something I did not expect. "You'd better check the county records before you act so certain." I felt the cold even though the sun was out. "What does that mean?" She gave me a thin smile. "It means maybe Dad left more behind than you know." Then she got into her car and drove away. I stood in the driveway for a long time after she left. The lake house looked exactly as it always had. The porch Dad built. The blue shutters William helped repaint one summer. The little brass bell hanging near the kitchen door because Dad liked to ring it when dinner was ready and pretend we were running a bed and breakfast. But the place felt changed. Not because Donna had brought a buyer. Because she had known enough to threaten county records. That afternoon, I called the county recorder's office in Ashford. The woman who answered had a calm, businesslike voice. Her name was Linda Morales, and after I explained that I wanted to review the title history for my father's property, she asked for the parcel address. I gave it to her. There was a pause as she searched. Then she said, "Are you Rebecca Clark?" "Yes." "And your father was Samuel Bennett?" "Yes." "I see a transfer on file from 2009 and a later affidavit attached after Mr. Bennett's death." My grip tightened around the phone. "What kind of affidavit?" "I can't interpret it for you over the phone," she said. "But you can request copies or come in person." "Was Donna Bennett the person who filed it?" Another pause. "I can tell you the filing party was Donna Bennett." I looked out the kitchen window at the dock. The sunlight lay across the water in a long, trembling path. "What did she file?" I asked. "I'm sorry," Linda said. "You'll need to review the documents." When I hung up, I sat at Dad's kitchen table with both hands wrapped around the phone. On the wall above the sink was an old framed photograph of him standing beside the lake in a flannel shirt, one hand resting on the shoulder of the dog he had loved before any of us had children. Dad had been many things: stubborn, quiet, too willing to rescue Donna from consequences. But he was never careless with paper. He kept every receipt in labeled envelopes, every insurance policy in a blue metal box, every tax document in folders marked by year. If he had recorded something in 2009, he had done it for a reason. And if Donna had filed an affidavit after he died, then she had not come to the lake house that morning, hoping I would simply agree with her. She had come because something was already moving behind my back. The next day, I drove to the county offices with copies of Dad's death certificate, my identification, and the folder of documents I had found in his desk after the funeral. The building was old and square, with stone steps worn shallow in the middle. Inside, the air smelled faintly of dust and copier toner. Linda Morales was younger than I had imagined, maybe in her 40s, with dark hair pulled into a low bun and reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. She greeted me politely, then led me to a small counter near the records room. "I pulled the file," she said. A thick packet lay in front of her. At the top was the deed from 2009. I read it once. Then again. The lake house had not been left to Donna. It had not even been left to me alone. The document showed that Dad had transferred the property into a recorded life estate arrangement. He retained the right to use the home during his lifetime. When he died, the deed named the remainder owner, Rebecca Clark. My name. I felt my knees weaken enough that I had to place a hand on the counter. Linda watched my face. "Were you aware of this?" she asked gently. "No," I said. "Dad never told me." "That happens sometimes," she said. "People make arrangements quietly." I kept reading. Below the deed was another document recorded the same day, a restrictive covenant. The property could not be sold, mortgaged, or transferred for 5 years after Dad's death without the written approval of the named remainder owner and a review by a licensed surveyor confirming that the legal boundaries matched the original recorded plat. I looked up. Why would he require a surveyor? Linda slid another sheet toward me. This may answer part of that. It was Donna's affidavit, filed 6 weeks after Dad's funeral. She had sworn that Dad had verbally promised her the lake house, and that the 2009 deed had been created only as a temporary convenience. Attached to it was a photocopy of the yellow note she had shown me on the porch. But there was one more attachment, a preliminary sales inquiry. Donna had contacted a real estate office 11 days after Dad died. 11 days. Before I had even finished sorting through the condolence cards on my dining room table. I stared at the date until the numbers blurred. Linda lowered her voice. Mrs. Clark, I can't give legal advice. But if someone is representing themselves as an owner when the record says otherwise, you may want to speak with an attorney. I nodded slowly. Then she tapped the restrictive covenant with one finger. And before anyone can sell this property, the boundary survey has to be reviewed. That provision is unusual, but it is very clear. Who would I contact? There's a surveyor listed on the original file, she said. Harold Vance. His firm still handles Old Bennett area plats, though Mr. Vance retired years ago. His daughter runs the office now. I copied down the number. Outside, the sky had darkened by the time I reached my car. A line of rain clouds was moving over the lake, heavy and low. I should have felt relieved. The deed had my name on it. Donna could not sell the house without me. But as I sat behind the steering wheel, I kept thinking about one detail. Dad had not only protected the house, he had specifically required a survey. Not a lawyer's review, not a family meeting, a survey. There had to be something in that land. Something Dad believed would matter after he was gone. And whatever it was, Donna had known enough to try to get ahead of it. The surveyor's office was in a brick building behind a hardware store on the edge of Ashford. I almost drove past it. The sign out front said Vance Land and Boundary Services in faded blue lettering. A row of orange safety cones stood near the entrance, and there were rolled-up maps visible through the front window. It did not look like the kind of place where a family secret would be waiting after nearly 40 years. But then, I had learned something after William died. The things that change your life rarely announce themselves. Sometimes they sit quietly in a file cabinet, waiting for someone to finally ask the right question. A woman in her early 50s met me in the reception area. She had gray at her temples, a denim shirt with the company name embroidered over the pocket, and the same steady eyes I remembered from her father. Mrs. Clark? She asked. Yes. I'm Allison Vance. Linda Morales at the recorder's office called ahead. She said you were trying to understand an old boundary survey connected to Samuel Bennett's lake property. I nodded. My sister is trying to sell the house. Allison did not look surprised. That bothered me more than it should have. Come with me, she said. Her office was simple. A heavy wooden desk, a framed photograph of an older man standing beside a transit tripod, a bulletin board covered in aerial photos and yellowed plats. Allison noticed me looking at the photograph. That's my father, she said, Harold Vance. He handled a lot of lake parcels back when this area was still mostly summer cabins. Your father's name was on my dad's records. He remembered your father, she said. Sam Bennett was particular. He asked questions. He kept copies of everything. That sounded exactly like Dad. Allison sat behind her desk and opened a thick cardboard archive box. The words Bennett Lakeshore Road, 1987 had been written across the lid in black marker. I found the field notes, the original plat, correspondence from the county, and a document your father asked my father to keep with a survey file, she said. My breath caught. What kind of document? I haven't read it all, she said. It is not my place to interpret family documents, but it appears to be an ownership acknowledgement connected to the survey. She placed a long folded map on the desk and opened it carefully. At first, all I saw were lines, measurements, and labels. Lot 14, Lakeshore Road, a dotted line along the water. Then Allison pointed to the lower edge of the property. This is what the county parcel map shows today, she said. Most people see one lake house, one driveway, one shoreline, and assume it is one property. That's what I always assumed. It isn't. She tapped the drawing. The original home sits on Lot 14. Your father purchased that portion in 1978. But the narrow strip along the water, including the dock access and part of the shoreline, was a separate parcel. I leaned closer. How separate? Legally separate enough that the house has no guaranteed access to the water without it. I stared at her. The lake house without the shoreline. The porch Dad built faced the water. The dock sat on the water. The value of the entire place came from that strip of land no wider than a long driveway. Allison unfolded another paper. In 1987, a developer who owned the adjacent tract questioned the boundary. The old map had been poorly drawn, and the county records did not clearly show whether the shoreline strip belonged to your father or to the neighboring parcel. What happened? Your father hired my father to survey it. The survey confirmed that the shoreline strip had been purchased separately years before your father bought the house lot. Who bought it? Allison looked at me. You did. I sat back slowly. For a moment, I thought I had misunderstood her. I was 29 in 1987, I said. William and I had just bought our first home. We had no money for lake property. You may not have understood the transaction that way, Allison said gently, but your name is on the recorded deed. She handed me a copy. There it was. Rebecca L. Bennett, my maiden name. I read the date twice. July 18, 1979. I remembered that summer. I had been newly married. William and I were living in a tiny apartment above a pharmacy in Willow Creek. Dad had called one evening, sounding embarrassed. He said the lake house seller was demanding more money than he expected. The seller owned the cabin lot and the shoreline strip under separate deeds. Dad had enough to buy the house parcel, but not enough to secure the access strip before another buyer stepped in. He had asked if William and I could lend him $4,000 from the savings we had planned to use for a down payment. William and I had talked for half the night. $4,000 was almost everything we had. But Dad had always helped us when he could. He had paid for William's auto repair course when William's father refused. He had driven across 2 counties to help us move into that little apartment. He had never asked us for much, so we gave him the money. I remembered Dad hugging me in the kitchen and saying, "I'll make this right, Becky. I promise." I had thought he meant he would repay us. I looked back at Allison. He put the shoreline parcel in my name? He did, she said. The deed lists you as the grantee. There is also a note from your father to my father's office saying the purchase money came from you and your husband and that he wanted the record to reflect that. A sharp ache rose in my throat. William had been gone 6 years, but there were moments when grief still arrived like a door opening in the night. He had never once mentioned the lake parcel to me. Maybe he had forgotten. Maybe Dad had told him something I did not know. Or maybe William had understood how much the lake house meant to Dad and simply trusted him to handle it. Allison slid another page toward me. This is the part that may relate to your sister. It was a photocopy of a letter dated August 2, 1987. The letter was from Dad to Harold Vance. At the bottom was a second signature, Donna Bennett. I read it slowly. Dad had asked Donna to sign an acknowledgement confirming that the shoreline parcel belonged to me and that she had no ownership interest in it. Donna had signed. Under her signature was a sentence that made my hands go cold. I acknowledged that Rebecca L. Bennett Clark advanced the funds used to secure the shoreline parcel and that any future sale or use of the lake property requires her written agreement. I looked at Allison. Donna knew. Yes, Allison said. She knew since 1987. It appears so. I read the signature again. Donna's name had a hard loop in the capital D, just as it always had. No question, no uncertainty. She had known for almost 4 decades that the part of the property everyone valued most did not belong to her. She had known that Dad had put the shoreline in my name because William and I had put our own future on hold to help him save the house, and she had still stood on that porch with a buyer and told me to do the decent thing. But I still did not understand why Dad had recorded the restrictive covenant in 2009. Why did he make the later transfer? I asked. Why put the house lot into a life estate and leave the rest to me? Allison opened the archive box again. There is something else. She brought out a yellow folder, brittle at the corners. Your father came here in 2009. My dad's notes say he was concerned that someone had been using an outdated legal description to suggest the house and shoreline were one parcel owned entirely by him. Someone? Allison met my eyes. The notes do not name anyone. But there is a copy of a handwritten note in the file. She handed it to me. The writing was Dad's. Not like the yellow paper Donna had waved in my face. This was unmistakably his. The letters leaned gently right. The ink was lighter in places. He had crossed out one word and replaced it with another. Harold, Donna has asked again whether she can borrow against the lake property. I told her no. She said Rebecca has no reason to keep the water strip separate and that I should fix it. I am afraid she will wait until I am gone and try to confuse things. Please prepare whatever is necessary so Rebecca's interest is clear and cannot be sold around her. Sam, I read it once. Then I read it again. Donna had not invented this claim after Dad died. She had been testing the ground for years. The yellow note, the buyer, the affidavit she filed 6 weeks after the funeral. Those were not desperate choices made in one bad moment. They were the final stage of something she had been quietly planning. I'm sorry, Allison said. I folded Dad's letter carefully. I'm not, I said, though my voice trembled. Not yet. She looked at me with concern. I'm sorry my father had to worry about this. That was the truth. I thought about Dad sitting in this same office 17 years earlier, trying to make sure his daughters would not destroy each other after he was gone. I thought about how often he had protected Donna from the consequences of her own choices. Maybe he had finally understood that protection and permission were not the same thing. Allison showed me one more document. It was a surveyor's certification dated 2009. It confirmed that any attempted sale based on the older, incomplete description would be misleading because it excluded the shoreline parcel I owned. A buyer could technically purchase the house lot, but they would not own the dock. They would not own the path to the water. They would not own the strip of land that made the lake house a lake house. And because Dad's restrictive covenant required my written approval and a survey review before any sale, Donna could not simply separate the parcels without alerting everyone involved. That was why she had brought Mr. Callahan to the house first. She wanted me frightened into signing before a title company or surveyor looked too closely. She needed my cooperation because the records would not give her what she wanted. I need certified copies of all of this, I said. Allison nodded. I can prepare them. And Mrs. Clark? Yes? If Donna has shown a buyer a document that conflicts with the recorded ownership history, you may want to speak with an attorney before you confront her. I was planning to call her right now. I understand, Allison said. But there is a difference between reacting to someone and protecting yourself from them. That sentence followed me all the way back to the lake house. When I arrived, the rain had started. The dock blurred behind a curtain of gray water. I parked in the driveway and sat for a minute with the folder beside me. I did not call Donna. Instead, I called an attorney in Willow Creek named Marissa Holt. William and I had met her years ago when we updated our wills. She was thoughtful, direct, and not easily impressed by dramatic family stories. When I explained the situation, she asked only a few questions. Did your sister file an affidavit? Yes. Did she bring a buyer to the property? Yes. Did she represent herself as having ownership rights? Yes. Do you have certified copies of the deed, covenant, survey records, and 1987 acknowledgement? I will tomorrow. Good, Marissa said. Do not meet with her alone. Do not sign anything. Do not hand her original papers. And if she contacts you, keep every message. Her calm voice made me feel steadier. What can I do? First, we can send a notice to your sister and to the real estate office she contacted, advising that you dispute her claimed authority and that the recorded title documents do not support a sale by her. Second, we can ask the recorder's office about correcting or flagging the affidavit if it contains false statements. Third, we find out whether she has approached anyone else. I closed my eyes. She said she needed money. That may explain her motive, Marissa said. It does not give her the right to take your property. After we hung up, I made myself tea and opened Dad's blue metal document box. I had brought it from Willow Creek after his funeral, but had never had the heart to go through all of it. The box smelled faintly of old paper and cedar. Inside were tax returns, insurance cards, receipts for roof repairs, and a stack of envelopes tied with a shoelace. At the bottom, beneath a faded folder marked Lake A House, I found an envelope with my name written across it. Rebecca. My hands shook before I opened it. Inside was a letter from Dad. The paper was dated November 2009, just 2 days after the life estate deed had been recorded. My dear Becky, if you are reading this, then I have either finally had the courage to give it to you, or I did not live long enough to explain it myself. The lake house is yours because you and William saved it when I could not. I know you never asked for repayment. That is exactly why I needed to make sure you were protected. Donna is my daughter, and I love her. But love cannot mean pretending she has not made choices that put others at risk. She knows the shoreline belongs to you. She signed the acknowledgement. If she tells you otherwise, do not let guilt make you doubt what is true. There was more. Dad wrote that he hoped Donna would change. He wrote that he prayed she would find stability and stop looking for shortcuts through other people's lives. Then, near the end, he wrote one final line. If she comes after the lake house, look behind the survey. The truth is not only in the land, it is in the money. I sat at the kitchen table until the tea went cold. The truth is in the money. I read the sentence over and over. Then I opened the lake house folder again. Tucked between a 1994 tax receipt and a dock repair estimate was a photocopy of a cashier's check from 1987. It was made out to Donna Bennett for $18,000. In the memo line, Dad had written 4 words: settlement. Lake house interest. My heart began to pound. Donna had not only acknowledged that I owned the shoreline parcel, Dad had paid her something connected to it. Something she had accepted. And if that check meant what I feared it meant, then Donna had not come to claim a promise Dad made. She had come to claim something she had already been paid to give up. The next morning, I brought the cashier's check, Dad's letter, the 1987 acknowledgement, and every survey document to Marissa Holt's office. She spread the papers across the conference table in a neat row. For several minutes, she did not speak. Then she picked up the copy of the cashier's check. Did you find anything else with this? She asked. Only Dad's note, I said. It said the truth was in the money. Marissa nodded slowly. The note was right. She pulled a magnifying glass from a desk drawer and examined the small endorsement stamp on the back of the check. Your sister deposited this at First County Bank, she said. The bank may still have the archived transaction records. If we can obtain them, there may be a release or settlement agreement tied to the check. What would that prove? That depends on the agreement, she said. But your father wrote settlement, lake house interest in the memo line. That is not casual language. I looked through the window at the courthouse square across the street. It was strange how much could be hidden inside ordinary things. A handwritten note. A yellow folder. A check that had been sitting in a metal box for nearly 40 years. Marissa leaned forward. Rebecca, I want to be clear. The recorded deed already shows that your sister cannot sell the lake house. The survey records show that she knew your shoreline ownership existed. The affidavit she filed does not make her an owner just because she says she is. But if she has made false statements to a buyer or real estate professional, we need to act carefully and quickly. I am sending notices today to the real estate office, the title company Mr. Callahan's group uses, and your sister. We will advise them that any attempted sale by Donna is unauthorized and disputed. I felt relief, but it came with sadness. I don't want to ruin her life. Marissa's expression softened. Protecting your property is not ruining her life. You did not create her debts. You did not tell her to file an affidavit that contradicts documents she signed. She was right. Still, I wished I did not have to be. 2 days later, First County Bank located the archived records. The branch manager, a patient woman named Sharon Ellis, met Marissa and me in a private office. She had brought a scanned copy of the deposit slip, the cashier's check, and a document that had been included with the transaction. It was titled, Family Property Settlement and Release. My hands trembled before I even read the first paragraph. The agreement was dated August 1987. Dad had sold a small piece of inherited farmland outside Willow Creek. The money from that sale had belonged to him, but he had promised both Donna and me that he would use it to help secure our futures. I had chosen to put my share toward the shoreline parcel, protecting the lake house and giving William and me a recorded interest in it. Donna had chosen cash, $18,000. The agreement said she accepted the payment as a final settlement of any claim, present or future, she might assert against the lake house, the shoreline parcel, or any proceeds related to them. The language was plain. It had been signed by Dad, it had been signed by me, and it had been signed by Donna. Not only had Donna known the lake house was not hers, she had accepted money in exchange for giving up the very claim she was now trying to sell. I read her signature until the room went quiet around me. Sharon folded her hands on the desk. "Mrs. Clark, I'm sorry you're dealing with this." "Thank you," I said, but I could barely hear myself. All I could think about was Donna standing on the porch saying Dad had promised her the property. He had promised her a choice, and she had made it. She had taken the money. For the next week, Donna avoided every call from Marissa's office. She did not answer mine either. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, I received a text message from an unfamiliar number. "Please don't do this to me. I'll lose everything." I stared at the screen. A second message arrived less than a minute later. "You know Dad would hate what you're doing." That one hurt. Not because I believed it, but because she knew exactly where to aim. Dad had spent his life trying to keep peace between us. When we were girls, he would say, "Sisters are supposed to leave the porch light on for each other." For years, I had mistaken that for an instruction to let Donna walk through every door she wanted, even when she came in carrying a lie. I typed my reply slowly. "Dad wanted us to be fair. He did not want you to take what does not belong to you. Please speak with Marissa by tomorrow." Donna did not respond. The next morning, Marissa called. "Your sister has retained counsel," she said. "They have asked for a meeting. Should I go? That is your choice. But if you do, I will be there. And we will not discuss anything outside the documents." I almost said no. Then I thought about the years I had spent avoiding difficult conversations, because I was afraid of what they might break. The truth was, something had already broken. I had not broken it. I had only stopped pretending it was whole. "Yes," I said. "I'll go." The meeting took place in Marissa's conference room. Donna arrived with a lawyer I had never met. She looked smaller than she had on the porch. Her hair was pulled back, and there were deep shadows under her eyes. For one brief second, I saw my little sister. The girl who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. The girl who cried when our mother died and held my hand so tightly I could barely feel my fingers. Then she looked at the papers on the table, and the old bitterness came back into her face. Marissa began calmly. "We are here to resolve the false ownership claim and prevent further marketing of the lake property. Ms. Bennett has reviewed the 1979 deed, the 1987 survey acknowledgement, the 1987 property settlement and release, the 2009 life estate deed, and the restrictive covenant." Donna's lawyer cleared his throat. "My client believes there were family conversations that created a different understanding." Marissa slid the settlement agreement toward him. "Family conversations do not override a recorded deed and a signed release." Donna stared at the document. "You don't understand," she said. I looked at her. "Then explain it to me." Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice was hard. "Dad always made it seem like I was the one who needed help, like I was the irresponsible one. He gave you the house. He gave you the shoreline. He gave you everything that mattered." "No," I said quietly. "Dad gave me a deed because William and I used our savings to keep the property from being sold. You had William. You had a stable life. You always had someone." That was the first honest thing she had said. Not the whole truth, but part of it. Donna had looked at my marriage, my home, and the quiet years William and I built together, and she had decided they were gifts she had been denied. She had never seen the overtime. William worked at the warehouse. She had never seen the months I brought lunch from home so we could save for a down payment. She had never seen us count bills at the kitchen table, worried we would not have enough. She only saw what remained after the work was done. "I did have William," I said, "and I miss him every day. But this house was not handed to me. The shoreline was not handed to me. We paid for it." Donna's tears slipped down her cheeks. "You could have helped me." "I did help you." Her face went still. I had not planned to say more than that, but once I began, I knew I had to finish. Dad helped you. I helped you. Michael helped you. Every time, we told ourselves it would be the last emergency, and every time, you treated help like proof that you were owed more. That's not fair. No, I said. It isn't. But it is true. Her lawyer leaned close and whispered something to her. Donna looked down at the settlement agreement again. Then she said, I thought I could sell it before you found out. The room went silent. Even her lawyer stopped moving. Donna covered her mouth with one hand. But the words were already there. She had said them, not because Marissa trapped her, not because I shouted, because the papers had left her nowhere else to stand. I needed the money, she said, her voice breaking. The condo is behind. I had credit cards. I thought if I could sell the house, I could pay it all off and start over. You knew the house was mine, I said. She nodded once. And you knew you had already accepted money for your claim. Another nod. What about the note you showed me? Donna did not answer. Marissa spoke gently but firmly. Was the note written by Samuel Bennett? Donna's silence lasted so long that I heard the clock ticking on the wall. Then she whispered, No. My heart sank anyway. She had copied Dad's handwriting. She had written the words herself. She had brought it to my porch and held it in front of a buyer. Marissa did not raise her voice. Donna, your attorney can advise you regarding the legal implications. But the immediate matter is clear. You must withdraw the affidavit, stop representing that you own the property, and sign a corrective statement acknowledging that Rebecca Clark is the lawful owner of the lake house and shoreline interests described in the recorded documents. Donna looked at me. Are you going to have me arrested? The question shook me. I did not want to punish her. I did not want to watch my sister fall further than she already had. But I had spent enough years letting compassion erase my boundaries. I am going to protect myself, I said. What happens next depends on whether you tell the truth and stop. Her lawyer spoke with Marissa in the hallway. When they returned, Donna agreed to sign the corrective affidavit. She agreed to withdraw the false claim. She agreed not to list, advertise, borrow against, or present herself as having any ownership interest in the lake house. She also agreed to reimburse part of my legal costs over time. Not all at once. Donna did not have that kind of money. But enough that the agreement meant something. Enough that she would remember the cost of trying to take what was mine. The recorder's office accepted the corrective affidavit the following week. Linda Morales called me after it had been filed. It is now attached to the same public record as the prior affidavit, she said. Anyone reviewing the parcel history will see that Ms. Bennett withdrew her claim. Thank you, I said. You did the right thing by checking the records. After we hung up, I stood in Dad's kitchen and looked out at the lake. The water was calm that afternoon. A pair of geese drifted near the dock, leaving thin ripples behind them. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. A few days later, Mr. Callahan called me directly. I wanted to apologize, he said. I should have asked more questions before I agreed to view the property. You were given false information, I said. I was, he replied. But I should still have verified it. He told me he had withdrawn all interest in purchasing the house. He had no desire to become part of a family dispute, especially one built on false records. I thanked him. Then I called Allison Vance and asked whether she would come to the lake house one more time. When she arrived, we walked slowly along the shoreline while she explained the boundaries. She showed me the old iron pin near the birch tree that marked the edge of my parcel. Dad had known it was there. All those years he had known exactly where the line was, not only between one piece of land and another, but between what belonged to me and what someone else was trying to claim. Your father wanted this protected, Allison said. I know, I replied. Then I looked toward the house. He wanted it protected from family, too. Allison nodded. Sometimes those are the hardest boundaries to mark. Donna moved out of her condo 2 months later. I learned from Michael that she had found a smaller apartment near her job. He did not tell me much, and I did not ask him to carry messages between us. That was another boundary. Donna wrote me one letter. It was short. She said she was sorry. She said she had been ashamed of her debt and afraid to admit how bad things had become. She said she had convinced herself that the lake house was meant to save her because she did not know how else to save herself. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer. I did not answer right away. Forgiveness is not always a dramatic moment. Sometimes it is simply choosing not to let anger rent space in your heart forever. But forgiveness is not access. It is not pretending the damage did not happen. And it is not handing some the same key they use to walk into your life uninvited. A month later, I wrote Donna back. I told her I hoped she would get help with her finances and tell Michael the truth without asking him to rescue her. I told her I wished her peace, and I told her that the lake house was no longer a subject we would discuss. Not because I hated her, because I had finally learned that love without limits can become an invitation for harm. The following spring, I opened the lake house earlier than usual. I swept the porch. I washed the windows. I placed Dad's old brass bell back beside the kitchen door. Then, I took one of William's photographs from the living room and set it on the table where Dad used to keep his papers. In the photograph, William was standing on the dock with a fishing pole in one hand and a ridiculous sun hat on his head. Dad was beside him, laughing so hard his shoulders were shaking. For years, I had thought the lake house belonged to our family because Dad built it. But that was not the whole truth. It belonged to the people who respected the work behind it. The people who remembered that a promise means something only when it is matched by honesty. The people who understood that love should never require you to give away your dignity. That evening, I sat on the porch as the sun lowered over the water. The iron boundary pin was still there beneath the birch tree. Small, rusted, almost invisible, but it held its place. So did I. If this story reminded you that protecting your home, your records, and your peace is never selfish, please subscribe for more stories about dignity, truth, and rightful boundaries. Like this video, and tell me in the comments, would you forgive a relative who tried to take your property after the evidence proved they knew it was never theirs?